UPod Street is an official affiliate of Birdland Sports. Visit birdlandsports.com/UPodStreet, and 10% of your order will go directly to supporting the pod. Use code UPodStreet at checkout, and you'll get 10% taken off your order. Now sit back, relax, and keep that beer cold, because it's on to UPod Street. What is up, Birdland? I am some guy who really sucks at single game parlays named Jimmy Horn. And joining me, as always, is the brunette Thor himself, Jack Bain. Jack, how are you doing this first week of NFL football?
Not the biggest football guy. And I'll wear that. But I do dabble in the fantasy. Doing well in one league, not so hot in the other. Football's fun. Like I like the culture around football. It's a good time.
I'll admit, fantasy is something that I'm very rarely good at. This year, the one fantasy league that I'm in, I kind of got screwed a little bit because our draft was when I was at the beach last week. So I'm like walking down the boardwalk, like trying to remember to like look at my phone, like, oh, is it my turn to draft?
You think you had it bad? I was in Central Park, New York City when my draft happened, bud.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I definitely missed a couple. I'm assuming you missed a couple then.
My first round pick was auto drafted.
Yeah, that's I think my second or third round pick was auto drafted. Yeah,
it was Bijan Robinson though, and he had a pretty good game today. So can't be mad.
I will say though, my fantasy league, I also got screwed over because we usually do the draft order is the opposite of what the standings were at the end of last season. And I'm always in like the lower 5, I would say. I think the best I've ever done in our fantasy league is like 5th worst, right?
Yeah.
So I usually have a pretty good draft spot. And this year our commissioner screwed up a little bit, and it was just a random order and he didn't like adjust it.
Yeah.
And so I was 8th. Which is like, I feel like the worst position to be in because it's like right smack dab in the middle of our league.
Honestly, that's what I had too. 8.
Yeah.
That's where I got Bijan. Whatever, man.
I got my round 1 pick was Saquon Barkley, which I was not happy with.
Yeah, especially with this Giants drive ending in a 20-yard sack.
Oh, no.
To force 4th down here.
Well, and I also wasn't happy that he held out for so long. Like, he wasn't going to practice for so long. I'm like, his week 1's not going to be good.
Right.
And, yeah, the worst thing is, so are you in any fantasy leagues that have a punishment?
Big buy-in, no punishment.
Big buy-in, no punishment. So I'm in a fantasy. So the one fantasy league I'm in, because I can only do one at a time. I tried to do multiple leagues one time, and it was awful. I can't focus. So the one league I'm in does have a small buy-in, but also has a punishment. The punishment is whoever's in last place has to go to a mall Santa, get a picture with the mall Santa with a sign that says, I asked for better fantasy draft picks.
Yo, that's funny.
I've always come close. I think I've been in this fantasy league for 4 years now. I have come very close to the mall Santa punishment all 4 years, but I've never actually been the one to get it. And I'm just looking at my team this year, and I'm just like, this might be a Santa year.
Enough of this football. Let's get into baseball.
I know. That's the thing is, first week of football, but also at the same time, if you're a Baltimore Orioles fan, Who cares about football right now? Honestly.
Good Ravens dub though today.
What's that?
Good Ravens dub though today.
Oh yeah. As an Eagles fan, also good dub, Eagles. There's a lot of baseball news to talk about. We are really in the heat of things when it comes to baseball right now. Before we get fully into the Baltimore Orioles, though, of course, we have to go to our weekly notes from around the league. So, Jack, what do you got for us?
More dudes are getting injured, man. It seems like in the last 3 weeks, it's been either Tommy John or like something. A lot of people are getting injured. Just a guy that we hyped up last week, Jason Dominguez, will likely need Tommy John surgery. It's like, dude, what? He's been up for like a week.
I feel like this is the worst time possible to get Tommy John as well, because that basically guarantees that you're out all of next season.
So
like at least with John Means, who got Tommy John back in last May, April.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, there's a possibility he'll come in at the end of the year next year. And he honestly would probably already be on this roster right now if he didn't have a setback with a separate injury.
Yeah.
But like to get injured right now where it's like, oh, you need Tommy John, you're not seeing this person until 2025, plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Dominguez, it wasn't a UCL injury. It was UCL adjacent. So at least from the initial report, can't remember the source, but it said like 6 months. So he could possibly be ready like by May of next year. We'll see. Obviously that's always a changing timeline, especially with Tommy John, a guy that's so young, and he's also not a pitcher. So that kind of also has some implications as well.
Especially with that new surgery they're doing, the one that Bryce Harper got.
Yeah, and this might be the same thing. I'm just not educated enough on Tommy John, unfortunately. Sandy Alcantara also went down early last week with an injury. He's been having a down year, but that's still a huge blow to a Marlins team that's trying to scratch into the playoffs for the first time since the shortened COVID season. I mean, they still have the guys to get them there. Honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised if the Marlins still squeaked in. It's getting a little tighter over in the NL wild card right now, which doesn't really bode well. But like all these races right now are so tight, and we'll get into them right now. But you look at the NL wild card, and the Phillies are in that top spot, followed by the Cubs and then the D-backs. The Marlins are half a game out, Cincy's a game and a half out, and San Fran's 2 games out. So for the Marlins to suffer an injury like that, especially when, they had to limit Yuri Perez's innings, Luzardo's kind of regressing a bit. The D-backs are certainly back. Took a big win today in Chicago. It's going to be tough for the Marlins to get in, but I wouldn't be surprised if everything kind of falls into place for them. They need some guys to stay healthy. Soler again was out last week as well. And if they can get Alcantara, excuse me, by the end of this week, I would say they still have a shot. Half game's not horrible. They still have a lot of room to work with. But yeah, like the Diamondbacks are playing good ball, man. Big weekend series for them against the Cubs. They ended up taking that whole series, which showed in the standings. I mean, they're now only 2 games back behind the Cubs in that second spot, and they were able to get into that third spot where Cincinnati this time last week was in that third spot. So
I think all the chaos though too is exactly what the MLB wanted.
Oh yeah,
we're coming into the last month. I mean, it's very similar to like I remember back in 2012, which the Orioles, of course, won the first ever like wild card play-in game. And it was one of those like it was just back and forth all the way the whole month, and it was like, wow, this is really great. And I think the MLB, like 8 years later, was like, hey, it'd be even better let's add more wild card spots.
Well, that was a COVID adaptation, right?
It
And
was, and they kept it, and I think it was
it
a
worked
good. I think it was a
so.
good keep, honestly.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, it worked well enough to the point where it's definitely more exciting. It gives teams more drive to be competitive with that extra two or that extra slot there. Because I mean, like a team like the Diamondbacks, who are way ahead of schedule, similar to the Orioles last year, are they have a shot, man. Like a young, exciting team that still doesn't have all the pieces there to be like a division contending team to knock the Dodgers off, but they have a shot and they're in right now. So yeah, let's keep it going. Other
I'm here for
postseason
chaos, by
news.
the way. I love
Oh,
the
no doubt,
chaos.
no doubt.
Give me more chaos.
The Braves clinched their postseason berth today.
That is not
6 straight
chaos.
years. That
That
is
that
not.
is very structured. Not chaos.
That one's scripted.
Yeah.
Got a little heated in Atlanta today. Bench is cleared in the first batter of the game. Ronald Acuna Jr.
Was that today or was that yesterday?
That was today.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Braves were going to win against the Pirates, who kind of were hot and then fell off the face of a cliff. Yeah, I don't know what the context there. There must have been something going on before the game.
The stuff I read was and I watched the video of it too. Acuna got a couple pitches, fastballs inside. Didn't take too kindly to it. The thing that I hate for both for the Braves and from the Braves at this point is where there's a bit of a superiority complex. And I used to feel this way about, or I still do kind of feel this way about the Yankees and stuff like that, where a team that is out of it pitches you inside and players take offense to it. And it turns into a thing. And this happened, and I point out the Yankees with this a lot because I feel like during the Orioles rebuilding years, as the Orioles be like already eliminated by this point. I mean, it's wild to me that teams are already being eliminated by this point. And I'm like, wow, did it happen that early with the Orioles during rebuilding?
It
And
did,
of course,
dude.
it did. It absolutely did. But that you would have teams that are already out of it playing baseball the way it should be played and saying, hey, this guy does not hit fastballs on the inside, or I want to push him off the plate. And players that are on teams that are in it taking offense to that. And I'm like, you know what? I get it where you're like, oh, that could have hit me and I'm going to the playoffs and you're not. Like, I get that aspect of it. But there's also part of me where it's like, don't get mad at teams that are out of it for competing.
Right.
Just don't play the game. Just play the game. Because when I watched the video back, I was like, come on. Is there a reason for the benches to clear here? Absolutely not.
Moving on to some other teams that really aren't in contention, but still have some players doing some cool stuff. Cole Reagans of the Kansas City Royals. He went over to the Royals in the Chapman trade. And if you don't know who that is, it's time to learn his name. Since being traded to the Royals, he had not allowed an earn, or no, excuse me. There was a streak of something that ended today, but he's been very lights out for the Royals. The Rangers used him as a reliever, actually pitched against the O's earlier in the season and was really bad. Gets traded to the Royals and just started shoving. I mean, he would go out for the Royals, give him 6 innings almost every start. Like, I'm looking at the game logs right now. 1 run, no runs, 1 run, 3 runs, none. I mean, it's just gross, dude. Like, the way that he pitches, I think like the Royals just kind of let him loose in the starting position. And it's really paid off for the Royals, who don't have a lot right now in the farm for sure, and obviously are in the cellar of the AL Central. So good for the Royals for sure.
Not only in the cellar of the AL Central, they're also in the cellar of all of Major League Baseball. I think, didn't they this week overtake the Athletics for worst record in all of Major League Baseball.
Did they?
I thought they did. They might be battling back and forth for last place, which great to see the Orioles
Draft
are not
picks.
doing that. But I'm pretty sure they overtook them at one point.
So the Royals are 44-100. The A's are 44-99.
Oh, so by half a game, they have a worse record, which doesn't
100
mean anything
losses.
anymore because of the lottery for draft picks. So it doesn't mean anything anymore.
We'll see.
Well, I
I
won't say it
mean,
doesn't mean anything. It just means less.
still get a top 5 pick, right? Like you
Yeah,
think about like the 1-1s in the past couple of years, like obviously Adley, right, is a big one.
and Jackson Holiday.
Yeah, but sometimes 1-1s never pan out the way you want them to. It seems like the degree of prospects coming up now out of college and high school are just bred differently, right? Like there's studs like Paul Skeens, stud, Adley, stud, Jackson Holiday, triple as a 19-year-old right now. So maybe the lottery is gonna kind of balance out everything with all these studs coming up, but we'll see. I I hope the Royals get 1-1, man. Like they need help, along with the A's. One of the two, they need help. What do we think about the Texas Rangers falling out of a playoff spot right now?
Dude, if you had asked me, and in fact, I think you did ask me right after the trade deadline, who you most afraid of in the American League right now, I would have said the Texas Rangers. Currently, I'm like, yo, please let the Rangers squeak their way in, and please let the Orioles play them in the ALDS because they are looking bad. They're what, like 4 of their last 12 or something like that? Like it's bad.
Yeah, I mean they squandered or didn't squander, but they were able to pull out a weekend series here and they won it. So they won 3 out of their last 10. Not good, especially
Yeah,
when the Mariners
three
got
out
so
of
hot.
10 is certified not good.
Yeah, and I mean, so now your AL wild card is Tampa, who's up by 8.5 games, followed by Toronto, and now Seattle. Now that Houston's taken the top of the AL West, and Texas is a half a game out, man.
That's the thing is it's very clear that one of the wild cards will go to an American League East team. Probably at least Tampa Bay, if not the Blue Jays. And then the other wild card will probably go to an AL West team. There's no way
No, yeah,
I think at this point that 2 AL West teams are making the wild card. So
big
the way
series
it keeps
this
shuffling
week
right
with the
now is absurd.
Rangers and Blue Jays start a 3-game set tomorrow.
Ooh, that could have huge implications.
Yeah, no doubt.
And there's a part of me that really wants to see the Rangers knock out the Blue Jays.
Big time. Big time. That'd be
Oh,
nice.
and
And
I don't
then,
like. There's also part of me that doesn't want to see that because I don't want to see the Rangers like get momentum into the postseason. But
right.
also at the same time, I want to see the Blue Jays not make the playoffs.
Yeah. To wrap on our MLB notes, if the season were to end the day and suddenly you, Jimmy Horn, are a baseball writer, who is your vote for NL MVP?
NL MVP.
You don't need to explain it. Just who's
Ooh,
your vote?
Acuna.
Acuna.
Yeah, easily. I'd say that'd be very fast. Like, oh, who am I checking off? Acuna.
Dude, I like bets a lot, but I understand. It's honestly like if I was in it, if I was voting, coin flip.
I would not disparage anyone for voting for bets. Honestly.
And we'll leave it there.
All right. Well, while all that's been going on, the Orioles, Jack, have been having a very good week.
And they did it
After coming
quietly.
off, what's that?
I thought they did it pretty quietly.
Oh, easily, very quietly. Like, that's the thing is, like, they didn't do anything, like, super explosive, which is weird because they had several games in a row where they scored more than 10 runs.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't something that was like, "Wow, the Orioles are incredible." It was just like, "Oh, yeah, they did that again."
It was like, wow, the Orioles took care of business.
Yeah, exactly, which is, when you're playing the Angels for the start of the week, that's exactly what you need to do. Just take care of business. You just came off of winning 2 games in a row against the Diamondbacks, who, as we talked about earlier, kind of heating up again, trying to, or they are currently in a playoff spot. You go to LA, face the Angels, who have put half of their team on waivers, apparently. And in game one, you put Grayson Rodriguez, your best pitching prospect out there, does pretty well. 6 innings pitched, gave up 7 hits, 2 earned runs, but 7 Ks and only 1 walk. So he got hit around a little bit, but overall, great outing. And you do have a Gunnar Henderson 3-run. I like how you put this in the notes, Jack. 3-run pump.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
Uh,
mean that was it was a good home run, man. It was
yeah.
launched. And that kind of put the Angels away in this game. Uh that made the game 6-2 and allowed the Orioles bullpen to kind of lock it down from there. The bullpen was pretty good. An untimely run led up by DL Hall. But other than that, like that was the only hit that the bullpen let up between Jacob Webb, Hall, and Yennier Cano. So if the Orioles score enough runs, like the pitching staff is good enough to really shut the door. Um, yeah, no more notes from this game. Honestly, it's just a taking care of business game.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those. It definitely throughout felt a little bit closer than it probably needed to be. But once Gunnar Henderson hit that 3-run home run, the good old Earl Weaver special, you kind of sat there and was like, no, we got this. We got this.
Always count on Gunnar Henderson for a late inning go ahead home run.
More reasons why he should be rookie of the year. Uh, we might get into that later though. Game two, a little bit more of a nail biter than it probably needed to be. Dean Kremer in this didn't look as polished as he has been recently. 4 2/3 inning pitched, no runs, 3 walks, but did get pulled early because he did find himself in a bind.
Yeah, I mean, his pitch count got up really quickly. Something that we've seen throughout the year from Kramer in his clunker starts. I mean, he's at 90 plus pitches within the fourth, fifth inning. That's kind of what we saw here. I mean, obviously, the 3 walks is the first thing that sticks out in his line. But the hits were lower than like that you see during those Kramer blow up starts, right? Like usually you see 8, 9, 10 hits. Only 4 hits in this game. Um, Again, no runs, not a quality start, but it's better than 5 earned over the same amount of innings.
Yeah, this was also one of many outings where we're gonna say a similar name over and over again, where Shintaro Fujinami looked really good, got himself the save after the Orioles offense did come through. Ryan O'Hearn was going off, Ryan Mountcastle as well, and then Shintaro Fujinami locked it down.
I will say that Fuji was the 7th reliever of the game. Jorge Lopez didn't look very sharp. One of his runs on his line was allowed by Danny Coulomb. I'm not out on Lopez yet. This week definitely wasn't his sharpest week, but they're like, in that game Saturday night, which we'll get into, he was one of the biggest pitchers of the game. So I think it's going to be kind of an ebbs and flows thing until Lopez can kind of get his feet back under him. I'm not worried about it. Again, I'm not worried about it too much. Excuse me. So yeah, I want to see him get a few more innings under his belt, back in an Orioles uniform, and before we make any decisions on who's going to be on the postseason roster or not.
I'll say that what we've seen from Jorge so far, is I haven't seen him like cost us a game yet. He's gotten into some jams here or there, but I haven't seen him be like, which is a little unfair because he also came in while we had a 7-game win streak. So, so it's a little unfair, but he hasn't done anything to cost us a game yet. So even when he's come in and gotten himself in a little bit of a jam, he's also had enough of a cushion to like get through it. So it would be very hard pressed to be out on Jorge Lopez right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, like another like the last takeaway from this game, the Orioles got to a very good reliever in Carlos Estevez in the late innings of the game to put the Orioles up in the to come back in the ninth to force extras. Carlos Estevez has been the Angels' guy pretty much all year. Nasty stuff, and we were able to scratch a pair across against him to keep the game alive. So like good on the Orioles for like never say die Orioles of 2023 just keeps that narrative going from this game.
And I think that's the big thing where we've talked about all season is this Orioles offense I don't think ever backs down. And so for all the talk that many MLB writers and national media and whatnot, they talk about like, oh, well, the Orioles aren't going to make a long run because they don't have an ace. The Orioles I don't think they feel like they need an ace. I think they have an ace in Kyle Bradish, and we'll get to his outing this week in a bit. But they feel like they don't need an ace. They just need a guy that keeps them in it because they feel like they can strike at any moment. And this week's story for the Orioles has honestly been the offense because the offense really came alive this week, which was awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Game 3, a 10-3 win, right? Really not. I think that kind of allowed Kyle Gibson to settle in his start after a really, really tough outing last week. He came back and pitched 6 innings, 3 runs. That's what you want out of Kyle Gibson, man. Keeps you in the game, especially with the offense firing on all cylinders like it did on the backs of Hayes and Santander. Santander went 3 for 4 and Hayes went 4 for 4. Both had a home run in that game. It just seemed like the Orioles always had somebody in scoring position during this game. They had 17 at bats with somebody in scoring position. They went 6 for 17 in that department, which on paper doesn't look great, but when you see the final score, it's like, well, that was plenty. Another takeaway from this game was the bullpen. After a very, very long game for the bullpen the night before, the tandem of Perez, Fuji, and Cole Irvin combined to only allow 1 hit across 3 innings, striking out 2, no walks, no runs. It was a great complete game for the Orioles. Glad to see Kyle Gibson didn't have another blow-up one, man. Hopefully that builds up more confidence as we head into a very big week. Really going to need him when his turn rolls back around the rotation.
Yeah, I think the big thing with this too is like I kind of went into this game thinking like, oh, to sweep a team, even a team that's given up like the Angels, like it's so hard. It is really hard to sweep a team. And Kyle Gibson, who, as you mentioned, like had a really bad outing the week before, you kind of sat there and thought like, I don't know. And the fact that you could win this game, not only win it, but win it in dominant fashion where you go, win 10-3.
Mm-hmm.
Really good confidence booster. And then you go into an off day, you go into a travel day before you come back to against a division rival in Boston. Personally, Jack, I thought they're going to come back to Boston because here's the weird thing. Usually if you're on the West Coast and you're coming back to the East Coast and you're playing a Wednesday game, it's going to be a day game because that's going to be a travel day, and then you'll have the day off, and then you'll play the other team. And I thought, wow, this game was 7:00 Western Standard Time. It was Pacific time. This was a late game. I was like, they're not going to have a whole lot of rest. And I thought they were to come out very flat against Boston on Friday, which turned out not to be the case, as the Orioles would go on to a blowout win against the Red Sox, winning 11-2. And for a while, the offense seemed a little sleepy, but once it really got going, I mean, they didn't stop. You did have a great performance from Kyle Bradish, who, as I mentioned, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, the Orioles don't have an ace." Kyle Bradish might be that ace. 6 inning pitch, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts. Jack, what do you think of that outing from Kyle Bradish?
I mean, I went into this one right. I was like, Kyle Bradish might shove tonight. I was talking to my dad. I was like, I might take Kyle Bradish over strikeouts today, and didn't fail me. My dad also parlayed that with a little Adley home run. Had
Ayo,
a
ayo.
nice little cash out when the power went out on Friday night. But yeah, man, I think when I was watching the start of this game, I was thinking the exact same thing. Wow, like these guys are flat. Like the travel day really is getting to them. But once that 6th inning came around, Cedric Mullins hit a double to make it 3-0, and they really didn't look back from there. I mean, yeah, like I said, Adley had a home run. Ryan O'Hearn also hit a home run. That was a little bit earlier in the game. But still, Gunnar was 3 for 6 with a couple extra base hits.
I think he was Gunnar a home run away from the cycle that night.
Yes, he was.
Shows
7
how
triples
good.
this year for Gunnar.
Yeah. Again, more cases for rookie of the year. Orioles went on to win that 11-2, which you love to see. And then this next game, Jack, which is a game that can only be described as what the hell.
Well, when it starts with an hour and a half rain delay,
Yeah,
that an
yeah,
Orioles baseball game will never be normal. It's just kind of
right.
been the way it is this year with rain delays. Game starts late. It's damp out there. Fenway Park grounds crew did a really good job to make sure that the game would still play. That was pretty much the story all weekend, right? And then a 3 hour and 40-minute long game, which was back and forth all game. A lot of pitchers used on both sides. This
No
was
lead
Jack.
was safe. No lead
No,
was safe.
nah. It just didn't seem like either side had a guy that they could turn to stop the bleeding. And again, it could be a result of fatigued arms. The Orioles used their bullpen a lot in Anaheim, and they came in off a travel day. This was another game where the Orioles would use 7 relievers.
Yeah.
And only 3 of them didn't let up a run.
And not 3 that you would expect too, because like Cano let up like 3 runs in the 9th or something. Like he almost gave it up.
Yeah, that 9th inning, man. I would have loved to know what my heart rate was during that 9th inning, because it's like 4-run lead. Orioles are fine. Bring on Cano. He's been great this year. And then suddenly it was 13-12 with, I think it was first and second. And it was like, okay, let's nail it down. And then I think it was like a liner to Austin Hayes after a foul ball almost went out. But yeah, I mean, a high offense game. If you would have told me in 2019 that a game started by Jack Flaherty and Chris Sale would end 13-12, I would have thought you were lying.
It was I would say this is probably the most frustrating win the Orioles have had all year, because they had many opportunities to put this game away.
Yeah.
Many opportunities where it was like, oh, this game's out of reach. Like you're good to go. And this Orioles bullpen, which has been very good as of late, just kept letting the Red Sox back into it. It was almost one of those one of the things the Orioles have been very good about this year, as far as their offense is concerned, like they're not scary. They're not just like blasting you away, but they small ball you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like the Red Sox were doing that back at us.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, we were getting a taste of our own medicine during that, which was not enjoyable, which is why I can see a lot of people like getting really frustrated with the Orioles this year. I was like, oh, this is what this feels like. I was glad that the Orioles pulled it out, obviously, to get secure the series win.
Mm-hmm.
We're also, by the way, at what, 84 series without being swept in a row.
Yeah,
I think it's
honestly, I
something like that. It was like the
forgot the
series right
number.
before Adley came up. So I think we're either 83 or 84 series without being swept in a row,
Yeah.
which is a really cool stat. Um, but glad the Orioles pulled it out. Did, like you said, use 7 bullpen arms, which meant the
Yeah.
bullpen, which was already very much not rested, became even less rested,
Yeah.
which led us into today.
Well, a couple more points on Saturday night's game.
Mm-hmm.
Orioles had 5 home runs. You know,
Which is
probably
awesome.
probably the reason they won. McCann had 2. Hicks
Hicks
had
had
1.
2,
Got in on the
or one. You're right. Yeah,
yeah,
Hicks
yeah,
had
and
1.
Westberg and Henderson also got into it. Westberg had a great game, man. 3 for 4 with the home run.
Got
Um,
pulled for something. He got
unsure.
pulled. He got pulled before the 8th or 9th inning, and it was one of those. He was triple away from the cycle, I believe. He got pulled, and Hyde said that he just tweaked something like everybody else does at this point in the season, and he
Mm-hmm.
hopes to have him back in the lineup for today, Sunday. Which I don't think he was out there. So hopefully whatever he tweaked is nothing.
Yeah, and especially because it really seems like he's starting to settle in.
Yes.
So hopefully it's not that serious, and he can get back out there.
100%.
On to today, another rainy day in Boston. There was not a long delay, but there was a delay at the start of the game, and then there was another delay in the 8th inning, which seemed kind of silly. Game was pretty much over, and then 15 minutes later, it was actually over. Grayson Rodriguez came out, looking for another series sweep, and I think that it was just kind of a flat day on defense.
3 errors.
3 errors. Big takeaway from the game here is that only 2 of the 7 runs scored by the Red Sox were earned.
Yeah.
That's something that the A's do, man. It's something the A's do. Something that the Royals do is let up 5 unearned runs in a game. Yeah, I get it. The elements stunk. It was apparent on the playing surface all game. Like there was a point in which Cedric Mullins came up from a headfirst slide and had to have that athletic trainer come out and wipe his face off. I get it. Conditions are tough, but and Ramon Urias, man, like a Gold Glover last year, had a really, really tough day out there.
It's also one of those too. I always say, like, the other team's playing in the same elements.
Yeah, exactly.
Orioles had 3 errors. The Red Sox did not. Plain and simple. And they're playing in the
Yeah,
same elements as you. So you can't blame the weather on that. Y'all just didn't have your best game today.
yeah, for sure. And I like Brian Bayo, young starter for the Red Sox, who's turning out a pretty good bounce back year after a really shaky rookie season. So it's not like it was a complete schmuck on the mound for the Red Sox. The Orioles did score 3 runs. In a week that was littered with multi-hit games from guys and a lot of long balls, it just seemed like the Orioles couldn't string any hits together. Yeah.
What can you do? I mean, at the end of the day, like the Orioles up to this point had 7 wins in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to win 8 games in a row. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
that not that like that necessarily has anything to do with the on-field play. It's just really hard to win. And the fact that they won 7 in a row up to that point was
Mm-hmm.
really impressive. So you just kind of have to wash this one. The game was a washout anyways. It was just downpouring in Boston
Yeah.
all day. And I was saying to my buddy who was watching with me, I was like, this game can go either way. Like, it doesn't matter who's on the mound. It doesn't matter how well people are hitting. It's just downpouring the whole game. And it's just like one of these teams is going to win, and it doesn't matter who's better or who's not. Like, it just was a wash of a game. Orioles still took 2 out of the 3 series. I wasn't going to walk away from this one being like upset or anything.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you want to win. You want to sweep again. But now you go home, right? Got 3 against the Cardinals.
The struggling Cardinals.
The very heavily struggling Cardinals. Hopefully, you build that momentum back up. Weather looks pretty good this week after a rainy weekend. So fingers crossed, no more delays. But before we move on to next week, just a couple topics that we should hit on. Jack Flaherty, man, has been really, really bad since that first start in Toronto. Every time he goes out there, it's just kind of like, oh, hope the offense shows up. Just to put it in perspective, his last 7 starts, 6 of which were in an Orioles uniform. He's 1-2 with a 7.16 ERA, 27 2/3 innings, 35 hits allowed with 11 walks. Strikeouts are still there, just about 30 strikeouts. It's just he's not competitive at all, and that's shown in his starts, man.
So my question for you right now, Jack, is does Jack Flaherty end up on this postseason roster?
I don't think it's out of the question that he's the corresponding roster move on Tuesday when John Means becomes activated. I would not be surprised even a little bit if he gets DFA.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing. So we talked about last week the whole like when he was really angry coming off the mound, and people were trying to be like, "Oh yeah, see, he has a bad attitude," which I was like, I don't mind that. This is a guy that's trying to compete, and he's frustrated that he's being pulled when he's in a bind, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Someone else pointed out to me, I don't know who it was. It might have been like Oriole Statistics or something like that. They pointed out they're like, when the Orioles have gotten an extra base hit and they pan over to the bullpen or to the dugout, and you see all the starting pitchers doing the sprinkler as the guy does the sprinkler.
Yeah.
Jack Flaherty is nowhere to be found.
Huh.
Now there is a little bit of a pass there to be like, this guy came in a month ago. He hasn't been there to bond with the team. He's still learning things, stuff like that. I'm just not feeling the team chemistry with Jack Flaherty. I'm just not. And I don't know what it is. I mean, yes, he's not performing. But I'm just not seeing this whole like, hey, like when Fuji came in, you felt the team chemistry with Fuji, where like the whole bullpen was like, hey, we got your back, man. Like he was a goof. He's goofing around with them. We got him doing the Simba cam with the mountain, Felix Bautista bobblehead and like whatnot. And it's just like, oh, this guy's part of this team. I'm just not seeing that with Jacob Webb. And I think so much that the Orioles have going for them beyond the stats, beyond the wins, is there's just a lot of good vibes with this team. And part of that comes from like these guys. A lot of these guys came up through the minor leagues together. And I'm just not feeling that with Jack Flaherty. And maybe I'm not looking for it. Maybe like, I don't know. But even like when guys have struggled on the team up to this point, it seemed like the whole team had that guy's back. And with Jack Flaherty, which again, he only came onto this team a little over a month ago, so he can be forgiven a little bit for it. I'm just not feeling that. I'm just not feeling it. So I'm kind of like, if this guy gets DFA'd, I'm not going to hate it.
Yeah, it's just like I mean, obviously, team chemistry is something that we don't see as a fan. That is
Right.
something that happens behind closed doors, and you can see the product of good team chemistry, as we've seen, all year from the Orioles. I'm hesitant to speak on chemistry. Obviously, the fact that he's not on the top rail, shooting the sprinklers off is whatever. It's really hard for guys getting traded midseason to immediately gel, right? I mean, you think about it, he's only been with the team for just over a month and he doesn't play every day. So it's harder for him to get acclimated, I guess. I don't know, it feels like a cop out, but yeah, I don't know.
It
It's
feels
just
like you have more opportunity to acclimate though, because you're in the dugout the whole
right,
time.
right.
Like you actually, I feel like you have more time to bond with guys, and it just doesn't feel like that. Now, again, like I agree with what you're saying. Like it's hard for us as a fan to like look at that and be like, oh, there's no team chemistry there. There very well maybe be stuff that we're not seeing. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying like typical stuff that as a fan you do see, we're not seeing from Jack Flaherty. He's not doing
Yeah.
the sprinkler. He's not being a goof. And I think a lot of this team is just kind of goofy. I
Yeah.
mean, it is. Like think of the best players you have on this team. Think of Santander when he had that post game interview in Atlanta after he had a grand slam. He got hit with that ice bucket and he just went, "Oh, that's cold, Papi." Like hilarious. Hilarious, right?
We need to clip that. We need to
Uh,
clip you saying that and put it
me
on
saying
the
that.
internet somewhere.
Um, well, that'll be the next TikTok. Uh, like you have like you have Mountcastle like before the season even started singing Dear Maria from
Yeah.
All Time Low. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
You can't.
I'm not gonna do it this time.
You can't.
But he did that. Like there's a lot of like serious moments with the teams where they're just goofy. They're just having fun.
Dude,
And
it's
I
because they're
haven't
all.
seen Jack Flaherty have fun yet. I just haven't.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be because, he's a lot older than everybody else on the team. I mean, you think about the core of the Orioles, they're all 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. And he came from a clubhouse that had absolutely nothing going for it.
Not a lot of fun having in St. Louis, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, I don't know. This got on a tangent about, the Orioles and what they do to keep things high, but end of the day, like John Means has got to replace somebody.
And my thing is John Means like besides the fact he's a good pitcher, he has very good vibes. I mean, the
Dude.
entire time he's been down, if he's not like out like at the FCL like doing some workouts or like
Yeah.
his rehab starts and everything like that, he has been with the Orioles dugout this entire
Mm-hmm.
time.
And he was there in
And
Boston this weekend, man. Like he's ready to get back, dude. Like I think the camera panned across the dugout one time. And I was like, oh, there's John Means. He's not in
yeah,
Norfolk. He's ready to go.
yeah, like he and that's again there are so many intangibles
Intangibles. Yeah.
in baseball. And where Jack Flaherty, I think, is like a veteran pitcher, and like when we picked him up, like you and I were both very high on the Jack Flaherty
I
pickup.
was very open to it, man. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's give him a shot. And then that first start in Toronto, like,
Oh, I was like,
so
here we go. Put the
yeah,
foot on the
man.
gas. We're going forward.
It's
Like,
like,
give me the
yeah,
World Series. Let's go.
after that start, it was like, oh man, another Elias masterclass. And then here we are talking on September 10th, talking about DFAing him.
Yeah. Cause like I really think that this team, which on paper, I mean, like I don't know about you, Jack. I wouldn't say super closely, but I do follow like I don't know if it's Barstool or it might be like Fox Baseball or something. It's not like the official MLB, but like it's one of the many MLB accounts. Every week they do like this is the all MLB roster. And for the longest time, the only Oriole you would see on the all MLB roster was like the relief pitcher was Felix Bautista.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since Bautista has gotten hurt, there's just no Orioles on the all MLB roster, right? And that's the thing is like on paper, it's like, do the Orioles have the best left fielder in all of baseball? No. Do they have the best center fielder in all of baseball? No. Do they have the best right fielder in all of baseball? No. Do they have the best third baseman? Like you can go position to position and say, do they have like the best guy, which points to like why they're having success? The answer is no. They don't have like, except maybe catcher, which even then, there's a lot of things to point out to be like, why are the Orioles being as successful as they are?
Right.
And I have to think the team chemistry with this team is so important. It really is just so important to why this team is having as much success as they are, that I think Jack Flaherty not fitting into that team chemistry, and not that anybody's saying that, like none of the players have come out and be like, well, he's just not fitting into our team. It
Because why
just kind
would
of
they?
feels that, yeah,
Yeah.
they know that would be detrimental to the team
Yeah.
chemistry, honestly. But it just kind of feels that way where I'm like, yo, give me Means, who I know will come in and the team chemistry is already there because he has been with this team despite being injured for the past year and a half. He has been with this team throughout all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
And yeah, moving on from Jack Flaherty. Per Rock Kubakto 2 hours ago, John Means is going to start on Tuesday evening against the Cardinals at home.
Oh, I'm so pumped.
I mean, we touched on what the corresponding move could be. Outside of Jack Flaherty, I don't even know. Crable.
Crable would be an obvious one, I think. I think Crable will be the likely move. Just because I think the Orioles at this point feel like their hands are a little bit tied with Jack Flaherty, where it's like, hey, we got to keep giving him chances. Like he was our big move at the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just at this point give up on him.
Right.
I will say that losing Crable for Means, it's still an upgrade. Did Rock Kabako say is Means starting Tuesday, or is he just going to pitch Tuesday?
Means starts Tuesday.
So this is the interesting thing too, because the Orioles just moved away briefly, I guess, from that six man rotation, right? They briefly said, okay, Cole Irvin, you're done being a starter again. You're going back to the bullpen. We're going back to a 5-man rotation. Well, immediately as soon as you do that, you're bringing back John Means and saying he's going to start. So does that mean you're going to a 6-man rotation, or are you sticking at a 5-man rotation and maybe you're DFAing Jack Flaherty? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously the roster, we haven't been great at guessing the roster moves all year.
Not
And,
at all.
We're gonna wear that one. It's okay. I'm sure it's something that we didn't even like.
There's a reason we're sitting where we're sitting, and
Yeah.
Mike Elias is sitting where he's sitting. That's just a fact.
Yeah, for sure. But just hoping that John Means can get back to where he was in 2021, where he rocked a 3.62 ERA. And in 2022, just his average fastball velocity was 91.7. In Norfolk, he was sitting around 90, 91. Hopefully, adrenaline gets into him. Get up to 92 maybe on Tuesday night. But I think just the main thing is going to be managing, workload, 1 innings. I'm sure he'll only go 4 or 5 innings if he's throwing well. But yeah, man, I just hope that he can really get back to that former self. Yeah.
He's always been a stuff guy. Not necessarily a velocity guy. And I think the biggest thing is, first of all, I love the move of having him start against the Cardinals.
Oh, no
who
doubt.
have nothing to play for and have been pretty much awful all year. give him a good confidence boost coming into his first major league game in September. I think the biggest question is, can you give us 3 to 4 innings? Because in the postseason, we talked about this last week, Jack, is I think that's all that's going to be asked of him. If you go out there with Bradish, who's probably your game 1 starter, Grayson game 2, Kremer Dean game 3, like those are probably your likely starters for each of those games. If John Means can come in and give you 3 innings or 4 innings to work behind those guys, I think that he's going to do exactly what you need him to do this year. I think next year he's going to be back to being John Means that we know and love, which is the last year of his contract, I believe, too. But that's all the Orioles are asking of him at this point. And I think if they phrase it to him that way, if they work him that way, just like, hey, give us 4 innings. Perfect. That's all we need. I think he can have a lot of success to help this team down the stretch.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for him is going to be, one, velocity, like I just harped on. But if he can get that curveball working, man, in
That
2021,
curveball is deadly.
yeah, in 2021, that curveball had a 165 average against. Tommy John sometimes will affect the way that a pitcher's curveball is after they come back. If he comes out Tuesday, man, that thing is thangin'. Like I would be pretty confident in John Means throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah. Interesting question that we got here from Brady. So does Tyler Wells end up back in Baltimore at any point this season or postseason, or is he done for this season? I don't want to count anything out with Tyler Wells.
Yeah.
I don't think he bounced back the way that the Orioles hoped he would, pulling him out of the starting rotation and then going to Bowie, where he was mostly in the pitching lab. I think he's in Norfolk right now. I think he just got the save the other day. Maybe not save, but he did close out a game the other day. Kind of seems up and down. I think Tyler Wells would be a great addition to this bullpen. I don't know if the Orioles are ready to trust him with it, though.
Yeah, so Tyler
I was ready to
Wells,
trust him with it. Like I said when Bautista went down, I was like, oh, give me Tyler Wells as a closer. I don't know if the Orioles are ready for that. And if they're not ready for it, obviously they have a lot more data to say why they're not ready for it than me, just watching from a fan perspective.
So Tyler Wells across the minor leagues since he's been down there. In Bowie, he pitched 8 2/3 to a 3.12 ERA. And then he did record a save in one of his appearances in Norfolk. He's appeared 4 times. 4.91 ERA. It's inflated, small sample size for one game. My personal opinion, I could see Tyler Wells coming out of the bullpen in the postseason, but that's it. I don't think that he's going to start another game for the major league club this year.
I these are the 2 moves I would love to see, Jack. I would love to see John Means to come in and the corresponding move to be Jack Flaherty. If he's going to be a starter, Jack Flaherty's the guy that's the odd man out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would love to see Joey Crable come out and the corresponding move be Nick Vespi. And I know we have harked on the Nick Vespi thing a lot this season. Nick Vespi for me has done nothing to lose my trust.
Yeah.
I have a lot of trust in Nick Vespi going forward. I have a lot more trust in Nick Vespi than I do Joey Crable.
Yeah.
I would love for that to be the move going into October. It's like, all right, John Means is replacing Jack Flaherty. Vespi is replacing Crable. And I feel very solid about where we are as a team.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the rosters will shrink back down 2 players. Yeah. So you're going to have to make room for 2 anyways. Assuming it's going to be 1 pitcher, 1 position player. Crable probably first one to go. And then probably McKenna too. You use Hicks as your fourth outfielder.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's also the odd one
That's
out.
a smart bet too. Yeah.
So then you look at the bullpen. You can't get Vespi and Wells in there, right? Assuming that Flaherty gets the boot or for Means. And I don't, is Means even eligible for the postseason?
He is, because he is
Yes,
still
he is. He's on the
technically
60
on the
day.
roster, but he's on the IL. So like I think he is. But Jorge Lopez, that's the other question. Is Jorge Lopez eligible for the postseason? And we've kind of I don't think we ever got a solid answer of yes or no. Because you said last week, well, he just needs to be on a major league roster by September 1st. It doesn't need to be the
When was he
major league
acquired?
roster.
What was his date of acquisition?
He was acquired by the Orioles on September 2nd.
No, I don't think he's eligible.
Yeah, because that was the question: is what is
Oh,
the oh
wait. A
well
player who doesn't meet said criteria, which is on the 40-man or the 60-day IL as of August 31st. If a player does not meet said criteria for postseason eligibility, he can still be added to a team's roster in the postseason via petition to the commissioner's office if the player was in the organization on August 31st and is replacing someone who's on the injured list. So, Ori Lopez not in the organization as of August 31st. I think we can assume that Lopez is not eligible for the postseason roster.
I think then you replace him with Vespi. You have to, right?
And that is per MLB.com.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Um,
it's fun to have to talk about this postseason stuff, man. It's been a while.
dude, right?
Speaking of postseason numbers, the Orioles, as of 9 o'clock today, their magic number to clinch a postseason berth is 5 games.
Which means the earliest they could clinch would be what, Wednesday or Thursday?
They would need everything to go right, but the earliest would be Thursday.
And that's a little rough because I think last week the earliest was Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it's been pushed back a little bit, but you know,
Well,
you can't expect the Orioles to win out and every team that they need to lose, you know, 5 games in a row or whatever. Like that's just not going to happen.
And then their magic number for the AL East is 17.
And that number theoretically should go down this week because there is that big series at the end of this week against the Rays.
Yeah, I mean, if you take 3 out of 4 against the Rays, magic number goes down 6.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Do we are we going forward with what to look forward to this week?
Yeah, before we get there, a late roster move or a minor league move was made today. Excuse me. A-ball seasons are coming to a close, and the Orioles decided that Samuel Basallo, it's time for him to go to double. He's been flying through for first base catcher. Is going to be heading up to double A across the minors this year. He's batting .307 with a 398 OBP. That is good for a 945 OPS. He's got 20 homers, and wait for it, he's got 12 stolen bases too.
How many catchers do you know can do that?
A prime JT Realmuto, but other than that, man, the list is short.
And he, I believe we were talking about this before we went live, but I think it was 6 home runs in his last 6 games.
Yeah, so he went on the IL, the 7-day IL in Aberdeen, and then came back and absolutely had a vengeance for, whatever higher force caused his injury. 6 home runs in 6 games. A couple of them were walk-offs. I'll do. In Aberdeen, no less. I mean, you said before the show started, Aberdeen's a tough place to hit in, man. It's huge.
Yeah, it is.
So the fact that, he's got 20 homers while playing in Aberdeen, a lot of those A-ball stadiums can get pretty deep in some different places. So Good for him, man. Excited to see what's going on there. And then another thing that we were,
becomes a big question moving forward, and the Orioles probably won't have to answer this question next year.
yeah,
But does Basallo become either the best backup catcher in the major leagues, or does it become a trade piece where the Orioles get a major return?
yeah, and I mean, and we talked about it before too. Like we have our backup first basemen are all on 1-year deals that are expiring at the end of the year, obviously. And Pasalo probably won't be up next year. Probably won't even start on the majors in 2025. So, a lot of things to think about, but he's serviceable at first base per the numbers. He's made 5 errors across 23 games. Not great. It's serviceable. It's fixable. He's a kid, dude. He was born in 2004. He's got some developing to do.
That just
But
made me feel so old.
right, yeah, me too, man. Damn.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
2004, you were what, 3 years old?
I was 4.
4 years old? Yeah, 2004, I was 12.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, man. But yeah, I can definitely see him being floated around in trade talks within the next year. It's another surplus, man. It's another
Oh,
surplus.
absolutely.
Obviously, we have the catcher of the future locked up for a little bit. Hopefully, we can get him locked up for even longer. But yeah, man, exciting that we have all this talent that's flying through the minors. Obviously, Jackson Holliday is the big one, who had a single in his AAA debut last week. And
Got
he looks
his
comfortable.
first RBI and extra base hit shortly after that,
Mm-hmm.
too.
I think the pitches are getting on him a little bit more.
Mhm.
Some of the off-speed stuff is probably a bit sharper than he saw in double. Um, any big change, even for Jackson Holliday, who has seemed immune to change up until this point, it's going to take some getting used to. I mean, he's been up there barely a week.
It's also one of those, as excited as I am for Jackson Holliday, I'm not in a rush for Jackson Holliday. I think the Orioles were in a rush for like Adley Rutschman. We were in a rush for Gunnar because we had several losing seasons before that. We had no, like, I mean, think about the catching core before Adley came up last year. Like, it was like, why are these guys catching above Adley? Right now, the Orioles have options at shortstop. They have Gunnar Henderson, who's playing shortstop a lot, who is great. Joey Ortiz could come up at any moment to be the backup shortstop. Jorge Mateo, I'm just gonna leave Jorge Mateo out of there. I'm not rushing to get Jackson Holliday up there. I would rather let Jackson Holliday at AAA right now hone in on his craft, get better. I think we probably will see him next year, but I'm not rushing him through the system. I just want to see him get better before he comes up.
The fact that the 2024 Orioles could have an infield composed of Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westberg, and Ryan Mountcastle at some point during the year, that's special, man. That's special
And
stuff.
Think about this: catcher Adley Rutschman, pitcher Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah, and I mean, and then we could go through the outfield too, man. But I mean, the Orioles are in a great spot, and we've been saying that all year. 90 wins, and there's
First American League team to 90 wins.
and there was a comment earlier in the show from Birdland Gaming that who thought before the season started the Orioles would have a legit shot at 100 wins. Not me.
I didn't think that. I thought for sure. I mean, I definitely picked the over, which was the Orioles total wins at 76. I was like, oh, they're gonna get over that. Did I think that over was gonna be 100 wins? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, so let's wrap before the week ahead. Let's wrap with this last question. Who starts at second base on opening day next year? Jackson Holliday or Joey Ortiz?
I would say neither.
I would also lean towards neither.
I'd say Westberg is the most likely candidate for the opening day second base job. You have to figure the Orioles have a really good thing going on right now where Gunnar is at shortstop, and then you have Urias, Westberg, and Frazier kind of rotating around. Now Frazier would be the question mark there because Frazier is on a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Do I see Frazier on this team next year? Probably not. I would say the person that takes his place is Ortiz. Do I think Ortiz gets the starting spot over Westberg for like second base? Probably not. I think it would still be Westberg. But if you're gonna ask me who's on the major league roster, Holiday or Ortiz, I think Ortiz will likely come out at the beginning of the year as being on the opening day roster. Jackson Holiday, who has surprised all of us with how quickly he has moved up. I'd say a realistic date for him next year would probably be July as a time that he comes up. But he's also, I mean, as I say July, he'll probably either break camp or or come up in like
Yeah.
April or May or something like that.
Yeah.
Don't put anything back past Jackson Holiday.
Of course not. So this week, man, got 3 against the Cardinals Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Obviously, big headline of that series. John Means coming back Tuesday. Tickets are cheap during the week. Try and get out to the yard if you can.
I'm
Those
very
are hot.
excited, Jack. I have 4 games I'm going to this week.
Big week for you, huh?
Oh, I'm so pumped.
And then
Um,
the Rays come to town for, I don't even think it's arguably anymore, for the biggest series of the year.
it is the biggest series of the season. Plain
Yeah,
and simple.
no doubt. Got 4. Big chance to really take the division lead here. 3 of 4, could put you 7 games up potentially here. Would really put it out of reach for the Rays. Not to mention, Adam Jones retiring as an Oriole is Friday night. That game is sold out.
Officially announced this morning as being sold out.
Yeah.
When's the last time you can think of seeing an Orioles game that was announced on social media as being like, this is sold out?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. It's going to be packed, but it's going to be electric, man. And if things hold up with the rotation, guess who would be starting that Friday night game?
Would that be Grayson?
Be Grayson Day.
Oh, I love it.
If they go 5 days.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
go
If they
6
stick
days,
with a 5-man rotation. No, I'm here for it, man. Like I said, I got 4 games this week. I have Monday and Tuesday. I got friends in town, so we're going to Monday, Tuesday. Should be a pretty good series for the Orioles. I mean, you never count anything out because anything can happen in baseball, but against the Cardinals, I feel pretty good. Tuesday, I'm very excited that we're going to get to see John Means's return for the Orioles, which is awesome. And then I had 2 tickets for Wednesday, but I said, you know what, Jack? 3 days in a row is a little much.
that's a lot, yeah.
So I took those 2 tickets and I moved them to Thursday so I could have 2 days, a
Honestly,
day off.
I'd rather have you at the Rays series.
Well, that was my thing. I was like, well, maybe I just push it back and go to the Boston series when they're in town because I have tickets to one of the games for the Boston series. Maybe I go to 2 games to the Boston series. But I was like, I want to be there against the Rays. I want to contribute to the home field atmosphere against the Rays of all teams. So I pushed it back. So I got Thursday night tickets against the Rays, and then I got Friday night Adam Jones night against the Rays. That game is going to be electric. I could very easily, just the way the numbers are like panning out right now, too. I could see Friday night also being clinchmas for the postseason.
Can you imagine?
So can you imagine Adam Jones night playing against the Rays Friday night and being postseason clinchmas? The vibes could be very high that night.
That could be bad for the city of Baltimore. Like
Yes.
that
Yes,
could
yes.
be
That
bad.
could be there could be a lot of bad things that come out of that Friday night.
Now to be
Um,
rocking, man. If you have tickets, looking forward to seeing you there.
yeah.
Gonna be
I'll say
great.
this, Jack, too. As an Eagles fan,
Yeah, whatever.
I moved those tickets from Wednesday night to Thursday night. The Eagles are on Thursday night football. And I
Uh-huh.
said, I don't care. Like, I only get to watch so many Eagles games a year because, they're not, I only get to watch them when they're on nationally televised games.
Yeah.
I literally said, I don't care. The Orioles are more important to me right now. And that's where we
You
are with this team is who cares about football? The Orioles are this good right now. The last time they had 90 wins this early in the season was 1979, Jack.
Yeah, that was a pretty good team, wasn't it?
I believe so. Was that a World Series winning year or World Series making it to the World Series year? I think they won it that year, didn't they?
My dad's gonna be so mad at me for not knowing this.
We weren't alive for it. Even I wasn't alive for it, Jack. We can't be blamed.
They lost that one to the Pirates.
But they did go to the World Series that year.
Yes, correct.
Just saying. I'm not saying it's a lock. I'm just saying. Pretty
Just
good
saying,
team
it's
to be
out there.
compared to. All right.
You got anything else, man?
Dude, I have nothing else to say other than I am so excited that the Orioles are back in town this week. It's been 2 weeks since we've seen the Orioles in town. I'm excited to see everyone at the yard. I'm excited to see how high the vibes are going to be. And honestly, I'm excited for Clinchmas. I don't know which game Clinchmas is going to be, but I'm so excited to see it happen. I'm excited to see them honor Adam Jones. I'm just really happy with this team and how things are going, and the fact that, as Birdland Gaming said, like we have a very legitimate shot of seeing 100-win team. And I don't know that I've seen 100-win Orioles team in my lifetime. In fact, I don't think I have seen a 100-win Orioles team in my lifetime. And the fact that we have a legitimate shot at that is awesome. So
Mm-hmm.
that's all I have to say is I'm just excited.
I might cry when it happens, to be honest.
Dude,
Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
every time I think about it, I kind of tear up a little bit, honestly. I usually get
Yeah.
chills. I get chills and I kind of tear up. So if
Yeah.
it happens,
Oh, I'm gonna
get
wear
the
it.
tissues
I'll
ready.
wear it.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%.
And just putting it out there, October 8th would be the second game of the ALDS at home. Ravens play the Steelers at 1:00 on the 8th. So again, could be another bad day for the city of Baltimore if the Ravens pull that one out.
Well, you know what's worse? October 7th, which would be game 1.
Mm-hmm.
There is a Stevie Nicks Billy Joel concert happening that night at M&T Bank Stadium.
Buckle up, baby.
Buckle up. What is it? What are the Orioles doing now? Their
Soak it
advertisement
in.
is soak it in.
I'm soaking it.
Soaking it in. Yo, speaking of soaking it in, this is the last thing I'm going to say before we exit.
Okay.
Yo, let's talk about Bruce Springsteen at Camden Yards.
Yeah, I guess you don't really need to worry about selling those tickets anymore.
Dude, let me tell you this. So we got to the point where it was like 2 days before the concert, right? So everybody that follows us on social medias knows I was trying to sell. I bought 2 tickets. I bought 4 tickets. 2 tickets was for my parents for the Springsteen concert at Camden Yards. Presented it to my parents, said, "Hey, surprise, I bought you these tickets." And they said, "Oh, we already have tickets." All right, cool. I'll try to sell them. No one was buying. Got to the point where like 2 days before the concert, and I sell them back to Ticketmaster because nobody's biting. Sell them back to Ticketmaster for a huge loss. Huge loss, Jack. An hour after I sell them back to Ticketmaster, Billy Joel announces that he is postponing all of his concerts for September because he has ulcers.
Poor guy.
So I'm not blaming Bruce Springsteen. I'm not blaming him at all. I am blaming me. I am a jinx. as soon as I sold those tickets back to Ticketmaster for a huge loss. He cancels all his concerts. So that's a little rough right now. What can you do? But the fact that we're now looking at, game 1 of the ALDS also might be during a Billy Joel Stevie Nicks concert at M&T Bank. This is a problem. Honestly, this is a big problem.
Look, I didn't even know Billy Joel was going on. So, you got anything else, man? Let's wrap this thing up.
Let's wrap it up. All I got to say is go O's. If you're not going out to the yard this week, what are you doing? Get tickets and go out to the yard.
Card giveaway for this week's winner will be posted on Twitter following the show.
Yes, we will get the winner as soon as we post the show. Once again, like, share, and follow UPod Street on Twitter. When we post the episode, make sure you share that, and you will be entered for a chance to win games.
Let's go O's!
There are people at my house.
Make sure to leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to UPod Street. Really appreciates us. Lets us know how we're doing. And as always, go O's. Thank you, everybody.
Go O's. You've been listening to UPod Street, an Orioles podcast by fans for fans. UPod Street is an official Birdland Sports affiliate. Directly support the pod by purchasing UPod Street or other Orioles merchandise using the link birdlandsports.com/UPod Street. Get 10% off your order when you use the code UPod Street. Follow us on Twitter at UPod Street and at JackBain20. UPod Street is also on Facebook and YouTube, and you can listen to the show on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. On whatever platform you listen, please subscribe, rate the pod, and leave a review. If you leave a review, we may even read it on the show. We'll see you next week, and of course, let's go O's.